Who really is Moultan? You know, where are you coming from?
I was born in the industry,
Okay.
so to speak. My father was the first contractor here on the island, and I guess I became an architect by association. I emulated my father, and he saw the talent in me in architecture. He pushed me to the limit. As I said before, he was a contractor, the first contractor, and his motto was that his children should go above him in terms of profession. He saw the architecture profession as the top of the building industry because it starts with the architect. Well, I should correct that a bit and say it starts with the client and then the interfacing with the client to the architect, whereby the architect brainstorm the client and develop a schedule of accommodation and visit the site with the client before he starts to generate his architectural drawings. So I was grounded in the field of architecture at a very early age. And as I said before, my father saw the talent and he pushed me from primary school right up to my tertiary education. So I started my primary school education in Calico Primary School. And then I moved up to the secondary school, St. Martin's, and then I left St. Martin's and went to the intermediate high school. And I was advised by the late Tim Richards to study my profession at Humboldt College in Canada. So I had a 2-year stint there, and I got my diploma in architecture. And my father, of course, figured that that was not enough education for me to be skillful at my craft, and he encouraged me to continue my education in the field of architecture. So I migrated to New York at City College, where I did my bachelor's of architecture. And even at that level, my father insisted I should do my master's. So I went on to Pratt Institute in the United States of America, Brooklyn to be specific, in New York. And I did my master's in urban design. I knew that internship was a must in order to be skillful at the craft. So I worked in America in the field for 10 years. Then I came back home in 1985, and I was lucky also than other architects to have a father who was already entrenched in the industry. And before I came home, he had an architectural office fitted out for me with 5 cubicles, a car. So it was very easy for me to integrate myself into the industry here at a very early age. So I started practicing my craft from 1985 here in St. Vincent to this juncture. And I'm now 65 years old, and I think I have enough strength to continue until the good Lord say no more, because I have a passion for the profession. So it's a labor of love to me.
You mentioned your father, you know, and I'm from the Stubbs area, and so I knew of your father, you know. And I think, you know, as we were talking, I could see that he would have been a strong influence on your life. I just want to zoom in a little bit on this. are there any buildings around that your father would have done that, you know, when you look at them, you sort of want to remember him and, you know?
He has done innumerable buildings on St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and I call them iconic buildings. I still have in mind to do a documentary on the life and times of my father, to showcase the iconic buildings he has been involving in, not only a construction capacity but in an architectural capacity, because he is a self-made architect. You know, he had that innate sensitivity for design. You see, you look at his buildings and you know, it is not only the technical aspects but the aesthetic elements that you have no choice than to call them iconic buildings. Mostly residential, and the commercial buildings he has been involving of note. The first one was the Annisville Airport, which is the first time in the history of St. Vincent and the Grenadines a contract in the building industry was signed. He also did Olives Hotel, which is demolished now. He did our post office in Kingston. He has done the fisheries center at Barley, where they process blackfish, and a host of other buildings which time does not permit me.
How has it been over the 30 years that you've been practicing? You know, to be trained in North America, those big cities, big countries, and to come to St. Vincent and the Grenadines and fit in?
Well, I always believe that once you're involved in creating the built form, that the principle remains the same. Whether in the North American scenario where everything is big and tall, and in our scenario where the scale of buildings are very minuscule, comparatively speaking, the principle remains the same. There's a little deviation whereby you have to understand that North America is a temperate country, and there are certain physics that would be different than the Caribbean scenario, Vincentian scenario. For example, you have to design for the cold weather. So your wall configuration would be different. I don't want to get into too much detail, but you have to think in terms of insulation. You have to think in terms of the mechanical aspect, where you have to make provisions for heating the building during the cold season and warming the building, cooling the building during the hot season. So there's a remarkable difference in terms of the physics, heat and cool. I had a culture shock when I migrated to North America, the overwhelming buildings. And at one point I was timid to entertain the thought that I at some time would have to design such magnanimous structures. But as I said, the principle remains the same once you understand that the technical aspects are there the aesthetic aspects, and you're trained along those lines, and you learn the tenants in integrating all the ingredients, whether the building is small or big, the ingredients and principle remain the same. So I was kind of taught that by my teacher in North America, not to be timid. And that particular professor, he made things look very easy for us. And one of the things that he kept harping and instilling in us, that if you don't have the passion for architecture, this is the time to leave. Okay. Because you need passion. And because it requires a lot of work, and the passion would make the work become easy. So I obviously took heed and learned all the basics, and I stayed there after my studies and got my internship over with, where I gathered all my experiences. I was fortunate during the summer in North America to get a job in the building industry, so that my internship was easy, and I was able to excel in the field of architecture in America, because I worked on large buildings, you know. Building that come to mind is Bank of America in Manhattan, 44th Street and Vanderbilt. And if you look at the architectural record, I am listed there for being part of a consultancy team that span the subway system, 100 and something feet with 3 trusses, and the building sits on that. So it was engineering feat. The structural engineer was a lady by the name of Steflada, a lady from Russia. So that was an eye-opener for me. And of course, I was tempted to become a North American and spend the rest of my life there, but my father was able to encourage me to come back. And reflecting on him being the reason for me being an architect, I couldn't disappoint him. So I came back home in 1985. And I found out I had to scale down my outlook in the field of architecture here in St. Vincent and Grenadines, because of the socio-economical differences, you know, because the budget